So we're going to continue the book, Obstacles in Devotion. So what I decided to do, because I have a group here, and somehow we're doing it every day, we'll just continue where we're up to in this group. And then after that's finished, after Kartik or a week or so, then I'll start, basically from the beginning and go over the book, because it seems to be very kind of practical devotion. How long will you be here, Jamila Babani? 19th. Okay, great. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Om Jnana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chaksur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Brinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Brad, you have one of those? Yeah, you saved me at that class.
Yeah.
So, I find this a very, very kind of interesting story and very practical. And it's written in the form of a story of a disciple, Vivek. He's chanting a lot. He came to Vrindavan to give up everything, and he's not feeling he has taste. In fact, he feels he's starting to get material desires again. And then he enters into a dialectic with his, but you see if there's more light.
There's more light?
Yeah. You just turn them all down. Some will go on. Okay, that's good. That's good. And the Guru says, well, you shouldn't be surprised. And then he even describes that the level in which we become attracted to Krishna consciousness in this life depends on the accumulation of aparad or offense in a previous life. Because you see, sometimes people come and they immediately are on the platform of Leela Smart. And I know these people. It's rare, but there are people like that are very deep. And when they chant, they're kind of spontaneously kind of watching a movie with the Hare Krishna mantras, like the background music or something. And so there's a long discussion, but the Guru is unrelenting. Well, Prabhupada is aparad, and the main aparad is Vaishnava aparad, and the main Vaishnava aparad is ninda, which is to criticize devotees. And he doesn't even put devotees, anybody. He puts it even thinking of it, even not leaving when someone comes. And yeah, so it's kind of, and we'll go over that again when I start this again. And then it kind of naturally comes in because he talks about also seva aparads, and then it comes into, and they're all very simple. The first one on Vaishnav Ninda is really long. The rest are just very short. On serving the deity with like faith, and then sadhu sanga. And the Guru is really pressing him. Each one is not just like a formality. It's really having some, is this too cold for you?
It's okay.
You sure? You have a cold?
I have.
Virus?
I think so, but today's better.
Okay. As long as it's not that, whatever that was that goes around.
I don't
No,
know.
it's not. I can tell you it's not. So it's not very casual, but sadhu sangha, it's some standard of association. And if you can't get that standard, it's certainly available in the books, which was kind of, like here, I'm living in Govardhan, and there's like, it's devotee loka. There's just so many devotees. And sometimes these Russian devotees, I think Russia comes from Rishi. It's, some of these Russian devotees are, they're pretty, Brother will tell you when she gets back. When she came to my classes, I gave 3 days of Prabhupada-katha to this one group, about 150 people. They brought me to Vrindavan. And then I lectured on, I'll write about it this week if I ever get a moment, on Prabhupada's last written commentaries, Brahma Vimohan Leela. And my realization when I started to teach it, how deep it was, and then I was saying, well, that's amazing because Prabhupada was on his back in pain, infirm, and it came out so deep. And then I kind of speculated, the good kind of speculation. You have a good conclusion, you're trying to figure out how it's true, rather than mental speculation, coming to your own conclusions. So I'm saying, like, why did Prabhupada finish this? And I came to the conclusion. I was saying, it just brought me trying to figure out Prabhupada's mind. He finishes it. It ends the Kumar Leela exactly, and gives the essential point that you have to understand to enter into the Bhakanda Leela, which is the first pastime where Krishna meets the gopis. And that's Yagyabhuk Balakeli, that the Supreme Lord, it's not, is either Supreme Lord or is a young boy. He's a young boy who's a Supreme Lord. And that story vividly expresses that. So I'm saying it's probably inspired to finish that. It's important to hear his commentary on that. And then I started to look through the purports, not just the philosophy, but when Prabhupada's eyes related what he's looking and thinking of the world in which he's living. He looks out the window and he sees, he reads the purport where it says Kali Sampat, that Vrindavan has an asset, wealth, environmental wealth for the pastimes of Krishna. It describes the white sands, the cowherd boys are picnicking, the birds and the bees are on the lotus flowers. Just a beautiful scene. And then you see Prabhupada kind of look outside, just like our Krishna Balaram Mandir, where you hear the birds and things. Now it's the middle of the city. Before that was the end of the city. And just other points that were kind of interesting. And then on Prabhupada's disappearance day, we went there in the morning, and Mother Lakshmi Moni gave katha, and then I gave katha. It's great, a half hour, 45 minutes because I was there when Prabhupada passed away. So being in Vrindavan that last year and a half of Prabhupada's life, when he came to leave the world, what it was like and the realizations we had, that was, so we're doing that. And it's kind of the exhausting part of Kartik, because programs, people, food. When you walk around Govardhan, and Tota Gopinath just left at 2:00, but he was doing full prikram every day. Like us, a walk around the block. He doesn't get moved, There was a TV show that none of you will watch. It was about a detective called Joe Friday. And he was so cool. And he would go, just the facts. Just the facts. So Tota's like that, just the business, right? Right? No fluff around it, just the facts. What is it, deity worship? No, okay, what do I do next, Okay. And Braja did full prikram today. She beat up on some monkeys along the path. I have to speak to her about that, but she thought they were attacking her, but these Jersey girls, they just, wherever they go. Okay. Yeah. Full prikram, huh? Pretty good. Coming and just taking full, that's the way you live here. And I have, this analogy of Vrindavan like a forceful wind, force moving towards Krishna. And we're like a sailboat. And if we're going in the direction of the wind, it's very, very pleasant. But if you have ordinary life and turn around, it gets very heavy. So it's not Vrindavan's heavy, it's the direction you're moving is wrong. So it's nice seeing Bhajan Tota and others that just going around every day and just keeping busy in parikram, and it's so uplifting in spirit and gives them that experience which we call faith. You get a feeling that you can't get in Tom's River. Or Brick, Fayetteville, Middletown, Spotswood. Hope I didn't leave out anybody there. You just can't get that. I mean, it's hard just to get that real bhav, like a happiness that's not things, but it's a flourishing of the soul. And then realizing that that's what real happiness is, not controlling things or moving things or attaining things. So it's nice, and soon as you go, then there's another, the person who runs that Russian group, kind of tall, handsome guy, Mukunda, yeah. Very close, very close. Him and his wife will come for 8 to 10 days, yeah. And they'll find you a room here. I know you don't care, but for those 8 to 10 days, and then, yeah, that was the deal with them. So anyway, okay, I'll get Sadhu Sanga. Then he said, if you can't get that Sadhu Sanga, you can get in the books, and then described here in the Bhagavatam. This is Panchanga Bhakti, the 5 most powerful processes. Then reading the books and how, who to hear from and how to read the books. And then again, Nam Kirtan, and again, the same point. It's such a powerful point that everyone's delivered, everyone is delivered, the worst drunkard, everyone gets Krishna's mercy, except the Ninduk. Ninduk is the criticizer. And if one can become aninduk without criticism, then he's completely blessed by Krishna. This is the realization, this is a strong realization of this sadhu who chants all day. This is his strong realization. And I've been to his ashram, it's like, if you're at Jaiva Dharma, it's like 500 years ago. You walk into the ashram and sadhus are just falling over each other, trying to serve each other. It's like so soft. And I'm sitting there. I guess they serve me prasadam. I'm walking, different sadhus walking in, and everybody's like bowing down to each other. And it's not kind of artificial either, because the disciple takes the mood of the guru. So they're very much like that. So it's, and then describes, living in Mathura and the importance of that. And so he goes through all these things, and we will go over them, and then discusses how important smaran is. And there's 2 types of chanting. One where you're chanting and your mind is filled with material thoughts, and one when you're chanting when it's filled with the name, form, quality, and pastimes of Krishna. So that's the real chanting. And how do you get it? It's he said it's difficult to control the mind. He quoted Bhagavad Gita. It's more difficult to control the mind than the raging wind, but it is possible by practice and detachment. So you practice it, and you get the samskaras. You get powerful samskaras in your consciousness. That's it. And but again, it comes to the point, if you don't have that, because if you're chanting and your mind wanders, but your mind is filled with Krishna's pastimes and lila and form, and then it inspires the chanting. So it's important that's why I have that picture there. I like to chant before the picture. It's a very intricate painting of Radha and Krishna. And I like to chant and then sometimes memorize all the depth of ornaments on Krishna, his peacock feathers, he has a golden crown with his red and jewels, and so therefore when you're chanting, then maybe, not artificially, but the form can come into your mind. But he says that even if that's not there, Taramadye Sarva Shreshte Nama Sankirtan Nira Aparade Poya Paya Premadan. Of all the processes of devotional service, chanting the holy name is the best, and if one can do without offense, then one can get prema. So by that, one will gradually. And Prabhupada was very, it's a sadhana kram. Sadhana kram means it's a step-by-step thing. You first focus on the name, then the form, then the qualities, then the lila. And it's not that you jump, it comes naturally as one purifies their hearts. But I have to say here, coming to Vrindavan, right? Brajas are like a real sadhu here.
No.
Yes, you are. Walking around the whole Govardhan, 6 hours sitting at Radha Kund and then coming. It's like, it's something. It's an impression in the heart that you cannot forget.
Yeah.
So you get to really live in a bhav. That's the whole thing. It's not that you have to create something, but you live in something. Just by the mercy of Giriraj, by the mercy of going around, by all the sadhus, hearing the class. Yesterday, so you heard Borijan Prabhu speak, Sachinandana Swami speak. You know, right? Then came with me to Vrindavan. Right? You can teach those Russian ladies a little discipline. Yeah, how to be attentive. Teach them some jokes. What? Teach them some jokes. Yeah, a little raganuga bhakti, a little spontaneous devotion, a little too dry. I see that. So then he comes, to Smaranam. And then this Vivek, and that's what we'll discuss today, he raised this question. He's that you earlier mentioned detachment. But Gyan and Vairagya, Gyan, which is the part of knowledge, but the part of knowledge is discriminating matter from spirit for the purpose of detachment. And then Vairagya, withdrawing the consciousness from the material, withdrawing the force of the consciousness from the objects inward, are not parts of bhakti. That bhakti manifests by itself, then what is the use of knowledge and detachment? And I think there's that verse, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Piyojita Gyanatriya. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Piyojita Gyana Vairagya. I'm forgetting the verse. It automatically comes, it means it easily comes. In other words, when it says it automatically comes by bhakti, it means it easily comes. In other words, we don't have to practice rigid, neti, not this, austerities to become detached. But when you develop bhakti, real bhakti, then you naturally become detached. So just by a little effort, then jnana and vairagya come. A little effort. Then we don't have to concentrate on the henos minyata dehe komaran yoga. You're not the body, you're not the body, you're not the body. We need to know that at the beginning, but to really become detached, we develop an attraction for Krishna. And then automatically, with very little effort, very little second chapter or something, we can become very detached. And you can see here in Govardhan, again, Govardhan's amazing because it's got all these devotional communities. It's got the GRC on the other side, the Govardhan Retreat Center. So it's a beautiful center with so many Vaishnava, Borijan Prabhu, Sachinandana Swami there. Then we got the ISKCON, they call it the palace because it was a king's palace. And you have a Sikh Krishna Maharaj, who's very, very advanced Vaishnava. Very. Effortlessly, seamlessly, the real thing. Externally and internally, you got there. Then you got Braj Vasundar, Bhakti Vigyan Goswami is there. It's an amazing thing that they built this kind of resort area. They even had little golf carts in a while. And the cottages, there's different sections of cottages, about 10 sections, and they're only built on 5 to 10% of the land. So it's a very nice kind of atmosphere. the Jamuna, then the Ganga, then the Narmada, then the Kaveri, all these different things. And the thing is, rich Indians built and kept their black money there. The thing that some builds a hole and then the snake comes in and gets the hole, doesn't do the work. That's what happened there. They did all the work, and then, it's a huge Russian community. It's really great. And then the Rupanuga Seva Ashram, which is absolutely 6 acres spectacular. It is spectacular. It's in trees, Radha and Shamakund, beautiful artwork. I went there for the opening. You could churn butter. You can learn to make rotis. You can make giriraj out of govardhan, out of cow dung. And they had the artik, the opening of that. And then, of course, the Govardhan Bhakta Seva Ashram, right here. Right here, Govardhan Bhakta Seva. And our next door neighbor, Mother Archer, what's her name? Come on, Archamurti. This like incredibly advanced lady from Russia who used to be married to Gopi Pranadhana, Sanskrit. She knows Sanskrit. And she's not ordinary either. So it's a nice, sometimes my godbrother Parthasarthi Goswami's here. And then there's also Radhakund. Then you have Radhakund there. And that's just the ISKCON Vaishnava. So it's a beautiful Vaishnava community here. Okay, so he asked this question, then what's the use of knowledge and detachment? What's the use? It's not part of bhakti. Renunciation, an item of bhakti. It's there in impersonalism too. So this is the question. It's not one of the 64, is renunciation. Our renunciation is yukta vairagya. We give up those things that have no value to Krishna. So it's not even, renunciation means you give up everything. Any impulse connected to the body. But we don't, because some of our impulses are used for service. So it's a whole different thing. So the Guru answers. He said, look, knowledge and detachment are born of bhakti. These 2 children always remain in the shelter of their mother, Bhakti Devi. I'll explain more clearly. When Bhakti Devi manifests in our heart, knowledge and detachment arrive there before she arrives. It's like this. Before the sun rises, the eastern sky becomes bright and announces the rising of the sun. In the same way, before we gain bhakti, we gain knowledge and detachment. Right? In other words, we practice devotion, but before we get real deep emotional attachment for Krishna, real bhakti, not just a practice. So before we get that, when we practice bhakti, that comes first. We automatically become kind of disinterested in the world. But disinterested in the world, again, in a practical way, those things that have no value to Krishna's service. But Vivek Das, he's asking questions because doubting is part of the process of bhakti. Tat shraddhayana munayo, jnana vairagya yuktaya, pashantyatmati chatmani, bhakti shruta. The seriously inquisitive sage, well equipped with knowledge and detachment, realizes the absolute truth by faithfully hearing from the Shastras, the Bhakti Shastras. So it says faithfulness and thoughtfulness are required in bhakti. And thoughtfulness means that you inquire to understand. Because when a lot of times when we hear the truth, we don't understand this. We're not really hearing the truth. We're either not understanding it or misunderstanding it. So the duty of a disciple is to get his doubts cleared. Otherwise, I explained this many times, in the name of faith, he'll be accepting things that he's heard, but is not understood as true, or misunderstood them. So therefore, doubting, you have to ask further and further. And the classic example, I mentioned this many, many times because it's so important. The classic example is Lord Brahma, who heard the Vedas 3 times before he came to the conclusion that the essence of religion is bhakti. Because the first time he heard the Vedas, like 80% are karma kanda. So he was smart. He said, this seems material. Gurudev, how can it be this? In other words, if he wasn't thoughtful, he just would have ran with that and preached it around the world. And it was wrong. He misunderstood what was in the Vedas by hearing it. He heard this and thought that was the essence, but he was mistaken. But because he was thoughtful, he just thought this doesn't fit. So Krishna explained the whole Vedas again, and then he heard some Upanishadic sections, a little organic, and he said, oh. But he said, how can the essence of religion just be the negation of everything? So he asked again, and then he finally understood. So this Vivek, and Vivek is a nice name because Vivek means discrimination. This Vivek said, he asked further questions. But Thakur Mahasai has said, he's taught Narottam, the ignorant people strive after knowledge and fruit of action. They do not know anything about Bhakti Yoga. So he said, this seems to be contradictory, what you said. Because you're saying, Bhakti comes first, and he's saying it has no value. This means knowledge opposes Bhakti. So now Guru said, now I understand your misconception. It is a mistake to analyze this. To which knowledge is Narottam referring to? When the living being thinks he's equal to Sri Bhagavan, this sort of knowledge arises out of ignorance. So that type of gyan leads to an impersonal conclusion. That type of gyan, you're not this, you're not this, you're not this, you're not this. So you deny everything and you come to the conception that there's no distinction and we're all one. So that type of jnanic endeavor is what's really said when they're against gyan. Just like in the definition of pure devotional service by Rupa Goswami is Anyabhilashita Shunyam Jnana Karma Jnanavritam. That pure bhakti is without any extraneous desires that are not integral to these. It's without any material motive, not covered by jnana or karma. And what's covered by jnana or karma? Well, we know what's covered by karma. In other words, you can have rituals, but it's not opposed to bhakti. And the example is given, where many rituals are, karma, kanda, you do this and for this purpose and that purpose, not part of bhakti. It covers bhakti if you kind of get into that mood. One time I was sitting in Jaipur with this astrologer, so one of the Grihasta, and then his guru walked in. And it was like a cartoon character. He was like, had this big belly and this bugle bundy, and he had like rings on each of his fingers, and he sat down and they started feeding Gurudev. And then he looked at me with such disgust. And he said, you Vaishnavas, he said, just with, one ritual on the Swati Nakshatra, on this particular thing, you were there, Braj, I would have said, get your violin. We know how to, I'll have to tell Braj a story. Have you ever heard of Jake LaMotta?
Jake LaMotta?
Yeah.
Yeah. The Raging Bull?
The Raging Bull, right?
Oh, yeah.
His granddaughter came to Vrindavan.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And she became like the follower. This is just for Braj, no one else. She became the follower, this is true, of this Sripad Baba. He was like the president of India visited him. She became his disciple, and then she thought he cheated her on something, and she went right after him. And he had to back down. All right, leave me alone. Take back your money. I was so proud of her.
That's so funny.
It's true.
Wow.
Yeah, the Raging Bulls.
My dad loved Jake LaMotta, so I heard that name my whole life.
Of course.
Well, you know what? My dad was really positive, and he would always say, "You never got me down, Ray," because he got beat, but he never got KO.
I know the whole story.
Yeah. My dad said that my whole life. You never got me down, Ray.
Okay. Little Italian stuff going on. Jake LaMotta, wow, okay. But anyway, I just wanted to tell you, the granddaughter defeated the biggest tantric in India. It's a true story. I knew her.
Wow.
What?
That's crazy.
She told me it. She said, you give me back that money. Leave me alone, Okay. We're a little intoxicated here in Braj. We all walked around the hill and we're just wild. So she says, it's a mistake to analyze like this. To which knowledge is he referring to? When the living being thinks he's equal to Bhagavan, this sort of knowledge arises out of ignorance. So the jnanic process is you're denying matter. So your conception of the absolute truth is opposite of form. We said form is material, I'm rejecting it. So the opposite is no form. So it leads to kind of an impersonal conception, just analysis without devotion. And even ourselves, we have to be careful, because sometimes if we just desire peace, instead of service, it tends to become impersonal. And that's happened to Narada Muni. He was up in the Himalayas and he couldn't get Sakshat Darshan again because there was some material taint. And what was the material taint? The material taint was that he was attached to the kind of the mode of goodness, the peacefulness. So rather than service, and the devotee's mood is for service, to the extent Narayana prasarve nakutas chanya bibyati swaga pavaga naratekshu apitu, that one who's Narayana loves God. Swaga pavaga narakeshu. Narayana prasarve nakutas and swaga pavaga. Doesn't matter, heavenly planets, swaga, pavarga, the earth, it doesn't matter. It's just where service is. So our platform is not, goal is not peace, it's love. Which gives the ultimate joy. But anyway, so this kind of knowledge opposes bhakti. Just peace, detachment, negation. And our argument is, if you're going to come to like a logical conclusion, the spiritual must be opposite of material, so here's form, spiritual must be no form. But I heard this brilliant, it was an ISKCON scientist, Rasaraj, he was a brilliant guy, and he said something really interesting. He said, no, the opposite of form is rich form. He said, just like the opposite of poor is not no money, it's rich is the opposite of poor. The opposite of form is spiritual form. So he says it's a mistake. So knowledge can be of three types. Knowledge regarding the living entity's true identity, the truth about Bhagavan, and that the living being and God are non-different from one another, jnanic. The third is false and opposes bhakti. If we gain such knowledge, we lose the sense that we are servants of Bhagavan. Therefore, we must reject the knowledge that we are non-different from Sri Bhagavan. The first two types of knowledge, that is regarding our identity and the truth about Sri Bhagavan, are good knowledge. We should definitely gain such knowledge. It is good for our bhakti. If we do not know the truth about God and ourselves, we will not be able to form a relation with Him. If we do not form a relationship, we will not do bhajan or gain bhakti. So our concept of metaphysical knowledge, this is another thing that I've always repeated, our concept of metaphysical knowledge is sambandha gyan. And there's many ways to explain this, but one way to explain it is you have to understand the relationship between matter, spirit, and God. If you think that matter, if you think that between spirit, God, and matter. So if you think spirit is matter, if you think you are the body, you are the enjoyer, you're not going to engage in bhajan and do devotional service. If you think that spirit is God, then why will you worship God? Or if you don't understand the relationship between God and matter and your mayavadis, and you think God is material, why will you worship God? So there has to be some kind of this knowledge, you're not the body, knowledge that you're not God, knowledge that God is not material. So it's good, because without that, you can't develop sambandha with God. And Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, O Bharat, Arjuna, know me to be the kshetragya in every kshetra, every field of activity, every body, I'm the knower. The knowledge about the kshetra and kshetragya is true knowledge, that is my opinion. So to know that the body, and there's a knower of body, to know there's a difference. When we gain knowledge about kshetra and kshetragya, about the body and the knower of the body, we realize that we are not this body, we realize our identity. Then we start on the path of bhakti, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita. As Bhagavan says in Bhagavad Gita, we should not expect honor, we should be without material pride, be non-violent, forgiving, and simple. We should serve Gurudev, be pure, have unwavering determination, self-control, renouncing, without false ego, feel sorry that living beings are suffering birth, death, disease, and old age, and be materially detached. We should not think the spouse and our children be our property. Be balanced in profit and loss, have singular devotion for me, live in a pure and secluded place. He should dislike mingling with material people, be always immersed in studying and practicing spiritualism, and discuss only the necessary truth. I classify all these as knowledge. Anything other than this is ignorance. The verse of Bhagavad Gita makes it clear that one who behaves in this manner is the true jnani. He who himself considers himself non-different than Bhagavan is not a jnani. Every sadhak must try to imbibe these qualities of knowledge. However, once we gain bhakti, all these qualities come naturally. So in other words, you cultivate these qualities to develop bhakti, but as you're developing bhakti, they come naturally. to be compassion and self-control and dedicated to Guru and non-violent and forgiving. Now let us discuss the types of renunciation. Falgu, like the Falgu River, Shushka, dry, Marakata, like a monkey, Smasanam, crematorium, Yukta, renunciation coupled with bhakti. Smasanam vairagya, that's the sixth one. Smasana vairagya, it means someone dies and you go to the funeral and oh my God, you're not the body, I'm detached from this world, what's the use? Okay, let's go have a beer. It's called temporary renunciation, but that's not real renunciation. Okay, Falgu renunciation, we'll go over these quickly. Generally, you cannot see the water in the Falgu River. There's a river where the water is just running right under the ground. But as soon as you scratch the sand on top, the water streams out. So sand on top, while water runs underneath. In the same way, we make a show of renunciation and detachment externally, yet our heart is full of material desires. This is Falgu renunciation. It's completely useless. So it's just an external show. And they say, like, a dog on a throne, you throw a bone, it reveals it. So you kind of see that sometimes you just scratch the surface and, I don't know if this story is relevant, but it's cute anyway. Tamal Krishnamurti and Chutananda used to go out and collect for the Bombay temple. And Chutananda would play the sadhu, and Tamal Krishnamurti would do the collection. I think once the check came out, he put his dunda on it. They couldn't take it back. So they collect money and they preach. Devotees were so dedicated. And then they serve him prasadam, and the Chutananda would just take like a little bit, and they would go, oh my God, sadhu. He just takes so little. They couldn't believe how little he would take. No, let's take a taste. And then they'd be driving back on Bombay, and they pass a restaurant, and he'd say, "Stop!" And then he'd run into the restaurant and eat. Okay. Now, shushka, dry renunciation. This type of renunciation, try the level best only to remain a renouncer. We may strive, go naked and lie under a tree, yet perform hardly any bhajan, and we're not concerned about progress in devotional life. Dry renunciation. It's just dry renunciation, no devotion, just renunciation. So that's also, people could do that. They just like to perform austerities. And then monkey-like renunciation. Maraka, monkey lives in a forest and does not collect more than he needs. He does not build a house and is strict vegetarian. On the surface, he seems the best renouncer, yet he is full of lust, anger, and greed. When we show we are strong renouncers, yet we are full of lust, anger, and greed, we are market the renouncers. So the monkey lives simple, has all sex life, but he's in a tree and this, but they're so full of desire. Smasana, sometimes one's wife dies. He goes to the crematory ground and detachment from the material world overwhelms him. He decides not to remain in this material world anymore. He decides to settle in Vrindavan before bhajan. However, when he returns home, his children speak sweetly to him. He forgets everything. A few days later, he gets married again. Smasana. Last one, yukta. In this type, the renounced accepts only what is absolutely necessary to keep the body and soul together so that he may perform bhajan. We can classify this type further into householders and Babaji. So it's just another beautiful analysis of renunciation for the devotees. But it's somehow time. Jamunajaya, are you there to just begin your reflections?
Yes, Hare Krishna Rise. Thank you for class. There's a lot of really good points. I was madly trying to scribble down all the different kinds of renunciation in my notepad. A few things I really loved actually how you began about your way of meditating, of looking at the various details of a picture of Krishna. I
This
love
is
that.
a this is a very detailed one.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
it
So
is.
I love that, and I oh, you show us? Can you, everybody. And I loved also the point of the fact that there's it's that the rejection of form. There's the opposite of form is not no form, it's spiritual form. I love the way you said that because I can see how people have that mindset. There's no
Right,
point.
and just like the
Yeah,
opposite of poor is not no money, it's rich. Yeah,
no
that's a good.
money.
Okay,
I love that
Judith.
point.
Yeah.
Thank you, Raj.
Gail, you have a question?
Yes, Maharaj.
Um,
Sorry
okay.
about that.
Yeah.
So you remember when you were talking about Ninda, right? And you
Yeah.
said something like, you know, in that context, when the Vaishnav comes, you leave.
When, no, I didn't say that. When someone comes and criticizes, it's still an offense if you stay there and hear
Oh,
it.
oh,
And
okay.
I'm saying is sometimes people come in and they start criticizing and you don't want to offend them. And sometimes it's your own room, you really can't leave, so it's really hard in a society because, they say that the first step of community is conflict. When there's no conflict, it means nobody's trying to get together. And then the final stage is unity. So in that second stage, people, it's tough. Okay, Gail. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Say hello.
Hare Krishna Guraj, well, Govinda, thank you for class.
A little worried about Brud. She's going to Radhakund every day, doing deep bhajan. What?
Great, great.
Going around Govardhan Hill. Disappears in the morning, comes down late at night. I don't know. You're going to have to up your standard now.
I'm working on it.
Okay.
Increase the standard.
Okay.
Well,
Okay. Okay. Haribo.
very well.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else say hello?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for class.
Okay. Ishwari. Nice to see you. Okay.
Nice to see
No
you.
work today?
Yeah, I'm just going a little late.
Okay, good. Okay. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, this is Krishnamrita. Thank you so much for the class. I like
Haribo.
very much when you spoke about thoughtfulness, how important it is to inquire about everything in order not to be just on the surface, but to go deeper. Thank you
Okay.
greatly.
Great. Great. Okay. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj is getting content. Yes, thank you for class.
Oh,
My
did
my
you
favorite part
have okay, good. Good.
my favorite part of your class was describing the Govardhan centers. So just remember them.
Isn't it great being here in Govardhan, right? It's something, right?
The most beautiful thing
You
ever.
would go over to Archamurti's place, you visit me for class, you go see Guru Maharaj and Braj Vasundar, right?
Yes.
It's great. Yeah, it's the best place. Okay. Anybody else say hello?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for class. Great to be with you this morning.
Thanks, Yvette. Haribo.
Haribol.
I will be seeing you in Govardhan because after Mayapur, I think Kastuba is going to bring, I think you and Dan, a few other people are going with, are going to come and they're going to
Yes.
stay at my ashram. So that's great. Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Looking forward to it.
Okay, I'm gonna look at the names of everybody that's there, so I know everybody that came today. And then I am saying goodbye. Let you go.